Back again, week 3. Thanks everybody for joining us. I have updated the boards. I went through this morning and updated the boards. Some of the lines have moved a little bit from when I originally made the markers, so we'll make sure we'll have that. But Ross and I are going to go through, and we are going to build on another strong week. Ross, how you feeling this morning?
I feel great. How you feeling?
I feel good. Last week for us was pretty good going into the Sunday night game. And we were up a collective 3 units. And then we both had the Bears plus 10.
Yep.
And Fields scores that touchdown, but he doesn't score the touchdown, right? Like, I mean, they didn't give it to him. That would have cut it to 7. Maybe Green Bay goes down and scores another touchdown, and it puts it out. But it felt to me like that moment was us going to be going up 4.5 units on the week, which would have been a nice week. But it lost that bet, so we went down to plus 1.5 overall between the two of us. For me, that was a half a unit. For you, it was 1 unit. So you're up to -2. So you're starting to dig your way out of that hole.
I'm coming back.
And then, I'm building off that. I still have that week 1. So, again, if people bet with us, if they bet all of our bets on the units that we said, right now they'd be up 4.5 units between the two of us, which I think is a pretty good start. We'll get to the prize pick stuff next, but both on the positive end of that for both weeks as well. You had a little bit better week than I did last week. Man, some of those were close last week. We can get into some of those.
So close.
Like Russell Wilson, 30.5 attempts, and you said over, and he had 31.
Yes, the Etienne one was really close too.
Etienne was close. Yeah, I was going through. I was marking. I was like, oh, he got that. No, he got that right. Oh man, okay. Yeah, it was very funny. But that is what it is. It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. A win is a win in the betting world. So. But yeah, let's get into this. For those of you joining us for the first time, we've got this little board that we build. Basically, don't worry about the numbers on the chips. It's more about the idea of like a 1 unit bet, a double unit bet, or a half unit bet. So for us, the orange chips are 1 unit. They have a $50 marker on them. The black chip is a double bet, $100 marker on it. And then the blue chip is a half bet. So, it's a bet we like, but don't like enough to put a full unit on. You throw a half unit on. So that's the idea. That's the structure. We've been doing this for a couple of weeks now. We did our pre, before the year, we did that for season long bets. I haven't checked in on those yet. It's too early to check in on season long bets. Don't panic yet. Got to at least get into like mid-October before you panic on your season long bets. But let's get into this. Interesting board this week. Where do you want to go first?
I'm going to start with that Raiders in Tennessee game. Okay. And listen, I think the Raiders, incredible comeback last week from the Cardinals. I think their season was definitely on the line. Their head coach was on the hot seat. A lot of, rumors about Kyler Murray. Is he disinterested? Call of Duty, such and such, right? And they came back and they won that football game. But I think the Titans stink. I think they're not a good football team right now. I think they have some issues. I think Derrick Henry is definitely on the decline. And I think it's probably what's the young man's name? The Malik Willis, right? The backup quarterback.
Yep, Malik Willis.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be his time sooner than later. So I love the Raiders this week at that -2, even though they're on the road. I think they're going to go into Tennessee this week and absolutely curb stomp the Titans. So I'm going to put a blue chip on the Raiders -2 this week.
All right, you're starting off strong. That's one of my picks. I'm not going to waste any time to add too much on it. I'm actually going to put a full unit bet on it. It's one of my favorite bets of the week. Like you said, I think the Raiders are a superior team. They're both 0-2. So, you have that. You have a West Coast team. Coast, I guess they're not coast anymore, but close enough to it. Yeah. You have a Western time zone team that's traveling east, for an early game. Maybe some of that plays into your mind, but to me, Raiders look to me like a better team. I don't really believe in the Titans. I don't know who to believe in the AFC South. I kept saying that the Colts were going to just win it by default, but I don't think you can say that anymore. So I'll actually make that a segue into the Chiefs at the Colts. maybe I am overlooking something, but I don't understand why this is only 5.5. The Chiefs look like they are just their midseason form. The Colts do not have it figured out. I get that they're at home, but who cares? Like, they don't have anything figured out right now. Maybe they get right. Maybe they get right at home. I know that they played the Chiefs okay in the past, but to me, if a team's rolling early and a team doesn't have it together early, just lean into that. So I'm not even going to think too much about it. I'm gonna lean on the Chiefs 5.5 on the road. I think that they're more than capable of beating them by 2 scores without any question.
I am completely with you. So you can put an orange chip on there for me as well. That was where I was going to go to next, and we'll see in picks wise later. I'm a huge fan of Pat Mahomes today. I think they're going to really roll indoors on that turf. That offense is unstoppable. Like the Titans, I think the Colts are one of the worst teams in football. I think we're going to find that out sooner than later. And yeah, I'm completely agreement with you there. I'm going to also take an orange chip, and I'm going to go to Foxborough today. And listen, another ugly loss last week for the Ravens. Their defense was just detrimented. I'm going to take them -2.5 today on the road against the Patriots. I think they're the better football team. I think that it was a weird fourth quarter last week in Baltimore, and they allowed obviously the Dolphins in Tua Tagovailoa to throw for almost 500 yards, and Tyreek Hill and Waddle were running all over the place, right? But they had a 35-14 lead heading into that fourth quarter. And they looked like the more dominant team. Lamar Jackson had an unbelievable game last week. I don't think the Patriots have as explosive an offense as the Miami Dolphins do. And I think that the Ravens, even though they are beaten up right now, but they get a boost back. They get J.K. Dobbins back today in the backfield. They're number one running back. I just think they're going to be able to control the clock and control the speed of the game all day long. And I think they win by more than 2.5.
Yeah, I like that 2.5. It's better than a 3, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get that little benefit there. One of my bets as well. I'm just going to put a half unit on it though, because I've got some other bets that I think I like a little better. I reserve the right to maybe double up on that at some point, but that's how I'm feeling right now. I feel like I've gone through my orange chips pretty fast. I want to go to the game above it, and I'm +6 for the Lions, who've looked good so far. That's too much for me. I mean, the Vikings look terrible against the Eagles. The Lions were getting killed by the Eagles as well, but then they kind of turned it on and were able to make a comeback where the Vikings never did. So this feels like way too many points for a divisional game. I don't know where that number comes from, because the Lions have looked really good. Their offense has looked good for sure. And so there's a lot of points here. I feel like I might, I'm just going to do it now. I'm going to put a little blue chip on the over for that number 2. 52.5 is a big over-under number, but I think that both of these offenses have shown that they can score points. The Lions defense clearly hasn't done great, and the Vikings defense looks like it's susceptible too. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of points in this one, and I think it's going to at least stay close enough that the Lions are going to be able to cover 6.
I completely agree with you. I'm putting those same 2 chips, but I'm going to flip-flop them. I'm going to put the blue on the +6 and the orange on the over, but I completely agree with you. I think the Lions are a decent football team. They can score points. We're not getting Monday night primetime Kirk today, so he'll have like 300 yards and 2 touchdowns or something weird like that. But I think Jared Goff can also match him. So I love the over in this football game. I love it, love it, love it. But I think the Lions will be able to hang in there. I mean, and I think you're going to get a steady dose of DeAndre Swift today. And like you said, the Vikings looked absolutely garbage last week, especially on defense. That to me was more surprising than Kirk Cousins having a bad game, was their defensive output. So I think the Lions will be able to score with them, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair.
Game above it, Bills at Dolphins. I want to take the Bills at 4.5 because they're just looking like the best team in the league. That was my intention coming in. And then Miami, man, they look fun, and they came back in that game, and you have to wonder. And now I'm like, well, maybe I don't want anything to do with the line. I think I'm out on the line. But what I like is the over under, because Bills are beat up in the back end, and we know that they can score a lot of points. And so I don't think 53 is enough to hold these two teams back here. And so to me, I like this bet. I'm going to put a full unit on it. I'm going to say over on 53 as well. Again, those are the 2 biggest lines of the week for over-unders, and I like the over. So, the books say, yeah, we expect a lot of points, and so we're putting it up high. I expect a lot of points, and I don't think that they're gonna that number holds either one of those games back. So I'm gonna feel confident. I'm gonna throw a full unit on that 53.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm completely agree with you on staying away from either team covering or winning that football game. The Bills are beaten up. We saw Micah Hyde going to IR yesterday. He's out for the season. The Dolphins are absolutely rolling right now through the air, but you just don't know. These are two of the better teams in football right now through 2 weeks, so it's a complete toss-up for me. And we also know that going down to Miami, it's hot, it's humid. We don't know how that's going to affect the Buffalo Bills and their offense. So I would stay away from that, but I love the over in that game as well. But I'm rolling again with the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. I'm a huge fan of this football team. I love the talent. I love what Doug Peterson's doing there. Trevor Lawrence is hot right now. Christian Kirk, that much maligned contract in the offseason, he's producing right now like a top 5 wide receiver in the league. He's got the numbers up. I am taking them +3 today on the road in LA. Just because I don't know what the hell we're going to get from Justin Herbert. I don't even know if he's going to play today.
Yeah,
right?
Very good question.
You
want a full chip or a half chip?
I'm going to do a half chip on that one. But, their doctors are going to shoot him up before the game. These are the same doctors that almost killed Tyrod Taylor a couple of years ago. And, even if he does play, I think he's going to be severely limited out there. And I think that Jaguars defense is frisky. And at the very least, if we see Chase Daniel today, then I really love the Jaguars +3. But I think the Jaguars are a good football team. I think they have a good chance of winning the AFC South, and I like them +3 on the road today.
Yeah, I kind of like the under in that game, but 42.5 is pretty low. There's an under that I like a little bit. I can't get away from thinking that this is just going to be an ugly game, and maybe I'm going to feel really stupid in a few hours because it's Tom Brady and it's Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. But their offenses are still not crisp, and their defenses are. And so I feel like this is actually you would expect with 2 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks to be a high-scoring affair. But when you've got the Bucks D might be – it's top 3 in the league, right? And they are really, really good. And on the other side, the Packers D is pretty good. And who would they have to stop? Evans got suspended. Godwin's not playing. Julio's nicked up. Who would have saw that coming? Right? Who do they really have to stop here? And they can't run the ball. They have not been able to run the ball.
Playing today. He just got signed last week. They got Russell Gage, who's also injured as well, but he's going to go out there and play today as well. So yeah.
So I'm taking the under there. Just putting a half unit on it, but I just can't get it out of my mind that it's a good bet.
Nice. I like it. I also like the Atlanta Falcons this week +1 on the road. In Seattle. I think Seattle Seahawks are absolutely dismal football team. The Falcons, who have yet to really get, guys like Kyle Pitts rolling, but Drake London looks good. Cordell Patterson really hasn't gotten rolling yet. He's having a split situation there, but I just think that they're the superior football team, and I don't think it's as big of a deal to go on the road anymore and play in Seattle, especially against that offense, which is just completely anemic. I'm going to take the Falcons +1 today on the road. I think they win that football game outright.
Which chip do you want?
A blue chip on that one.
Okay. I'm actually with you. It was one of my picks as well. I feel good about that one. Let's see. I've got one blue chip. We've gone pretty fast. I've got one blue chip and one double chip back left. Why don't you go again as I survey the board?
I think this is a get-back game for the Cincinnati Bengals, right? So -6 right now on the road against the Jets. The Jets are kind of feeling themselves. They got their improbable win last week, right? I think they have a little bit of a letdown. I kind of cashed that one last week. I was happy that they won that football game. But I'm going to put an orange chip on the Bengals this week to cover that -6 spread. I think this is going to be a blowout. The Bengals have to get their SHIT together at some point. And Joe Burrow, who missed most of training camp with the whatever he had, I forgot what he had. But he was out for all that time.
Like appendicitis.
I was going to say it was appendicitis. Yep. So he was out for all that time. They reworked that offensive line, but they're still struggling a little bit. I think this is a get-back game for them and that entire offense, and I think they absolutely roll the Bengals, the Jets today, and I'm going to take the -6.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to pull down my 1 unit bet on it, and I'm going to make that Kansas City 5.5 a double bet. I just can't get away from it. I just think they're a much better team. It's not enough. It needs to be at least a full score. So I'm gonna double up my bet with Kansas City, and then my last chip here. I'm actually going to put on 6.5 with the Eagles. I love that it's 6.5. So if they win by 7, I win the bet. I think they can blow them out. I don't believe in the Commanders. I think that they're a bad football team.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Eagles have been rolling early.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep the good times going. So I'm going to make sure I get a bet in there. Any final bets from you?
One final bet. I'm going to roll with the home team here today. It's my big bet. I'm going to put a big chip on the Bears -3 today.
Listen,
I think that they've proven they can run the football. I think this Texans team is really bad on offense. I think the defense is going to be able to shut them down today. You get Roquan Smith on the field. Looks like Jalen Johnson is going to play as well. I just don't see how the Texans are going to be able to score points on the road in Soldier Field today. We talked about this before the show. Weather conditions are great today. I think Justin Fields and Luke Getsy have heard the noise from last week. They're going to be able to put the football in the air today. I just think the Bears' offense is going to be able to score some points, and the defense is going to be able to shut down the Texans. So I like the Bears today -3 big.
Couple comments before we move on, Ross. Could have gotten the Jacksonville. Yeah, we know.
Yeah,
we know. Yeah,
I know that hurts.
But it is what it is. Where I'm trying to do the live lines so that people that are coming in on Sunday morning can look at it. In terms of a pick'em, like if you're in a pick'em league and you can change your picks up to the end, pick early, and then if the lines move, you can move them you can change your bets to your advantage. But if you're going to put a bet down, then like that there's a lot of risk with incomplete information. So I tend to wait until, I put a couple bets in earlier in the week that I liked. I was like, I'm just not going to move off these. There's nothing that's going to make me want to change these bets. But that's kind of how I see it. And then Andrew, thoughts on hammering the over on Vikings rushing yards? I just think there's going to be a lot of points.
Yeah.
So I think that you give me all the yards, give me all the points. That's sort of where I'm at. What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that you're going to see big games today. I would probably hammer the over on Swift rush and receiving yards and Dalvin Cook rush and receiving yards today. I think both those guys are going to have two great all-purpose games today from both of them.
Love it. Well, thank you, Andrew and Mike, for those comments. Keep them coming. We will keep addressing them. So let's move on to Prize Picks. So we're partnering with Prize Picks this year. Cool format. Check them out. If you do sign up, please use that promo code BEARS. It's the best promo code. Everybody should be putting in BEARS anyway because it's the best. But we are doing well. You are doing slightly better. You had a very good week. Again, we talked about at the top. A couple bets that were very, very close. But again, you only have to win it by a half an attempt to win it. So that's kind of how that works. It's always easier to try, in my opinion, it's always easier to try to find bets that you like, that you think, oh, that guy's going to go over that.
Right.
You can have that thinking of, well, that's too many yards, that's too many attempts, whatever, and some of it comes down to game flow and all that kind of stuff. So it is what it is. If you prefer to think of things in the negative way, it's not necessarily what we highlight that much. I do have a negative bet, but we'll get to that. It's just a matter of how you kind of view these things. So I'm going to start off. I did go into that Jacksonville Chargers game. I found a bet for Austin Eckler to just score a touchdown in any way possible. He can get it on the ground. He can get it through the air, and he can throw a touchdown, right? So 0.5 for Austin Eckler to score a touchdown. To me, if Herbert is hurt and plays, or if Chase Daniel plays, they're going to feature Austin Eckler more, right? They're going to dump it off to him. They're going to give him more carries. So I think there's going to be more opportunities for Austin Eckler today. So I like the chance of him being able to score a touchdown in this game. I like the Jags front a lot. But Austin Eckler, it seems to me like it's going to be an Austin Eckler day.
Yep, completely agree with you, especially if it's Chase Daniel today, right? A lot of dump offs, a lot of just, Eckler, just a lot of touches for him today to be able to try and get something going for that offense. I like that a lot. I'm sticking with that game as well, but I'm going to go to the other side. I like Trevor Lawrence plus 1.5 touchdowns and taking the over on that today. Listen, I know that the Chargers have a great defense out there, but I just think that they're going to get a ton of touches today because of the situation with Herbert. We don't know if it's going to play. If it's Chase Daniel, I think the Jaguars offense is going to be out there a little bit more. I don't revere that stadium as like a huge home field advantage for the Chargers. I think that it's more so a Ram Stadium. So I think Lawrence is on fire right now. He's playing well. He looks great. Doug Peterson has him locked in. I'm going to take him for at least 2 touchdowns today. I like it.
Same bet, different game. I'm going over on Tua, and this is a little bit of a nod to his 6 touchdowns last week. So he can do it. But to me, this game is a shootout. The Bills secondary is beat up. This is a total reflection of that, because I really believe in the Bills defense. But when you're playing with backup players or banged up players, I'm a little worried that they're not going to see this kind of speed, anywhere else in the league. And so to me, I really like Tua to kind of back up last week and get over that 1.5.
Yeah, he's playing great right now. They had a video last week of somebody reversed it and they had him throwing right-handed. He looks like Joe Montana when he's throwing right-handed. It's so weird. So, but yeah, I love that as well. Listen, the last time David Montgomery saw the Texans, he absolutely gashed them for over 100 yards. He had a touchdown. I think you're going to see the same thing again with him today. I'm going to take the over on his 69.5 rushing yards today. You saw him have an amazing game last week against the Green Bay Packers. I think he's going to be able to break off a few long runs today, 20, 30-yard runs. I just like him to get more than 70 yards today on the ground.
Yeah, I broke down his 15 carries for Bears over Bears this week. And it was just really fascinating to take a deeper dive into, I charted out all the, this is what happens when you get into it, right? Is you literally chart out all of the run plays. And it was very interesting to see how the Bears were attacking. They weren't really spamming one play or anything like that. Yeah. But the way that I looked at it, it looked like he created 80 of those 122 yards on his own, just with broken tackles and the moves that he was making. And I know there's an expectation for running backs to break that first tackle, regularly, but he had that one amazing run. He broke 4 tackles. He is just on fire. He's a man possessed right now.
Absolutely.
And in a game where you think the Bears are likely to hold a lead, or at least have the potential to hold a lead, then you're going to get some of those salt away the clock carries as well. That to me is a really good bet. I like that one. We highlighted it on the 10-minute drill earlier this week too. Sorry, I need to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see Bailey in the comments here. I like David Montgomery as well for anytime touchdown today. If you want to throw that in there, absolutely go for it as well.
Yep. That was one we talked about on the 10-minute drill as well, was the touchdown. I wanted to highlight a different touchdown with Eckler, but all right, let's get into this Kansas City Indianapolis game.
Yep.
So we have the quarterbacks. I've been enjoying going to the interception category, saying like, who do I think will throw a pick? And to me, this is, I like Matt Ryan. There's nothing about Matt. This isn't a negative Matt Ryan, but this is someone who hasn't played particularly well yet. His receivers are not playing well. And they are going to be behind.
Yes.
And so they're going to be throwing the ball, and he's going to have to push it. Yes. So to me, this is a really good bet. This is, it might not happen, but this is a good chance here. And I won the Wentz bet last week, right? So I think I'm going to kind of look for these interception bets for a while, because it's kind of fun to think about who's going to maybe make a mistake.
Yeah, I like Matt Ryan too. You know what I like most about Matt Ryan? He gets that one interception out right away, man. He'll just throw it in the first quarter and get you off the hook right away. It's like he's just like, let me throw that interception right away, and then let me ease into this football game.
Cash it early.
Yeah, absolutely. I got the Kansas City Chiefs today in a lot of my bets today. I'm going to take the over on Pat Mahomes in that 287. Look, that's a lot of yards, but this is Patrick Mahomes. I think he easily throws for over 300 yards today. I expect a lot of Travis Kelce. I got a little Travis Kelce anytime TD parlay bet as well. The Colts just are not going to be able to cover him. I know Shaq Leonard is looking like he's trending to play today, but the defense has been struggling. And, Pat Mahomes notoriously, this is a Gus Bradley defense now. He notoriously has torched Gus Bradley in his career. And I just think that they're going to go into the Indy today and absolutely torch that football team. He's going to have a big day. So I'm going to take the over on that 287.5.
Yeah, I think I already bet like an over 2.5 touchdowns for Mahomes today as well. So, I'm in on this torching. You mentioned it earlier, Swift, 45.5 rushing yards. I'm going over there because he can get that in one carry. Like, I mean, that he's just an explosion waiting to happen. I think that offense is still being underrated. It's early. You won't always get, when you catch up to the teams that are hot and the players that are doing well, then those numbers will rise to a level. There's a pass, receiving yards and rushing yards that's a little higher. If you want to go a little bit safer in that respect, if you think that maybe the Lions are trailing and they're going to get him receptions instead of rushing, you can go that direction. But I 45.5 yards is just not enough to me for Swift, who is he's a top, he's certainly a top 10 back in the league. So easy for me to make that one.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a low number there. I would take the over as well. We talked about the Tennessee Titans earlier being a bad football team. There's no Hunter Renfrow today. He's out. He had a bad fumble last week, and now he's injured. I expect a lot of Devontae Adams today, early and often. I'm going to hit the over on those 82.5 receiving yards, today. Again, Titans are not a good football team. This is a get-right game for the Raiders and Derek Carr, and I think he's going to look to his best friend a lot. I'm going to take the over on him and the over on Darren Waller as well for that 52.5 yards. I just think that passing offense is going to be able to roll today for the Raiders in Nashville. I'm going to take the over on both of those yards today.
Yeah, those are the two studs. You imagine that they're going to, have an easy time eclipsing those numbers. I missed the Adams bet last week with targets. He just did not get targeted in that game. So that was one of my misses, unfortunately. But I'm going with targets again, other side of the ball. Again, we're talking about Tennessee, who we don't think is very good. We think that the Raiders are going to be leading, which means that we think that Tennessee is going to have to throw. I think Trailon Burks, this is going to be his potential fantasy breakout game. And to do that, you need targets, and 5.5 targets feels pretty good to me. And so I think he can get 6 or more targets. I think he's trending up. And so this is where you want to try to take a guy where you're trending up when the numbers haven't quite caught up yet.
I like that a lot. Sprinkle him in today on a lot of bets, a lot of parlays and stuff like that. I like Trailon Burks, a lot of overs today. Good call.
All right, before we let you go, Ross, any final thoughts? I know you're going to go to the game again this week. How was Lambeau Field? What's going on there?
Listen, Lambeau Field, I know it's blasphemy as a Bears fan to say this, but it's top 5 sports experience. I've been there a couple times. I think everybody needs to make a pilgrimage out to Lambeau. The people are amazing. The town's awesome. We stayed in an Airbnb like 4 blocks from the stadium. You just walk around. Everybody had like a case of Busch Light underneath their shoulders. And it was awesome. The game was awesome. Unfortunately, we did not get the win. So hopefully I can right the wrong today. I'm going back today. I'm bringing my lucky charm with me, my gorgeous wife. And, hopefully we can get the win today. And my final thought is absolutely blasphemy that you didn't like the Batman. It's just...
Listen. All right. So Twitter, I put out that the Batman, here's the truth. Is it took me multiple runs to get through that movie. Man. That's where I'm at with it. I gutted through it last night, but I would start it and I'd watch like 15, 20 minutes and it wasn't pulling me in, man.
Oh man.
And I have a very high opinion of The Dark Knight. And I know people were kind of blasting The Dark Knight a little bit, I think too much. A lot of people loved it.
Yeah.
And then there were people that were like, oh, well, it's just because of the allure behind the Heath Ledger death and all this. And it's like, it's an amazing performance. It's transcendent.
It's iconic. Yes.
And so if you're going to bring in that same villain, and I just didn't think that I like Paul Dano. I like Paul Dano as an actor, but I didn't think that he had there was no juice there.
He's not Heath Ledger. Yeah, he's not Heath Ledger. The last 20 minutes of The Dark Knight is a little rough for me. That's also, when Heath Ledger essentially exits the movie because he was not able to finish the scenes because he did pass away. But The Dark Knight is still hold in high regard. I love the Batman, but I'm also, crime noir movies are my favorite genre. I love movies like LA Confidential and Seven and those kind of like serial killer-esque, dark movies. So it was right up my alley. I will say the Batman works a lot better when you're in a theater and you're just enclosed in a dark room, and it's a perfect theater experience. I have watched it at home as well since I saw it in the theater, and it doesn't hold up the same. So I do agree with you there. But Matt Reeves is an amazing director. I love the direction that he's taking with this franchise. You got a little bit of a, spoiler alert, a glimpse of his version of the Joker at the end that we'll probably see in the sequel. And I love that emo vibe that Robert Pattinson was doing with the Nirvana music and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. So I like that vibe as well. I love all versions of Bruce Wayne, even the George Clooney one. I'm a huge Batman fanatic. So.
All right. Well, at some point, I'll circle back and give it another try. But
absolutely,
have fun today, Ross.
Thank
send
you.
pictures out on Twitter, and
yes.
We'll make sure we're following you.
Yes, and let's get some wins today, buddy.
Thanks, man. All right, Erik, what's going on, man?
Oh, not much. Just wrapping up my kicker rankings for the week. So glamorous stuff over here at 11:30 Eastern time.
As one does. have to go through the kicker rankings. Yep. It's the final piece of the puzzle for the week, right? Yeah. Well, you caught some pop culture conversation there at the end. Ross is good with that. I told him we can talk movies. If he ever wants to talk music, I'm a loss. So I'm just gonna follow Ross's playlists, and I just stopped really caring that much about music for a long time ago. But movies, I'm still into. Used to be very much into movies. So that's always a fun conversation.
I'm still trapped in the 90s personally, so don't ask me for anything culturally relevant because it's all going to be 90s movie references and music pretty much. So I'm no help here. I'm sorry.
90s movies are still the best, right?
Yeah, you can't go wrong. Don't get me started on that.
All right, so I should mention before we go any further that our friends at Homage sent me this really cool T-shirt. So it's nice. Like the old Tops.
Yeah.
The wax packaging, right? So it's kind of this. I love it. So there's a link there's an affiliate link in the link in the description there if you're interested in some of the Homage T-shirts. Really nice, comfortable, some really cool stuff you can't find anywhere else. So for those of you that are interested, and thank you, Homage. This is a cool shirt. Love this shirt. And this is like a neutral shirt, right? Like I could go to any game in the league, and I can wear this cool Tops football shirt. But anyway, let's get into daily fantasy. So last week, my lineup did okay. Like it didn't cash, so I guess it was a bad lineup. But it was like pretty close to cashing in a contest. So like whatever, like I think you have to be like top 50. Depends on the contest, but top 10, top 15%, kind of where you're at. And I think it was like 21% or something. You had a similar lineup, so I imagine you probably finished somewhere close. Yeah. We don't talk about this beforehand,
right?
And we have some similarities in how we built this lineup. Here's what I'll say. You can like what we did. You could take an amalgam of what we've done, or you could like push them together. Like that makes sense. I mean, you can kind of find those things. You can also say like, okay, both of these guys picked Jalen Hurts. Maybe there's going to be a lot of people that are picking Jalen Hurts and I go somewhere else, right? So I think you can use Erik and I building these independently for different ways. I think you could roll with it. I think you could say, oh, okay, well, those guys kind of approve those picks, or you can say like, oh man, that's where these guys are going. I need to think creatively and go a different direction.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of like last week, Derek Carr was our quarterback with Devontae Adams. When they don't hit big, obviously that's our big stack. The lineup's not going to cash. That's just the way this goes. I think we probably took a similar thought on the quarterback this week where it was like, man, I need some more upside at quarterback. Some of these rushing quarterbacks are kind of dropping off and how much we can trust them here. And it kind of felt like Jalen Hurts is just locked into an awesome game here. So, we can get through our whole lineups, but that was kind of how I started, was like, Hurts is just in a great spot here. Let me find someone to pair with him and go from there.
Well, and you stacked him with his tight end.
Yeah.
Whereas I stacked him with AJ Brown. Yeah. So I took another premium spot and I gave it to AJ Brown. That's my first receiver that I picked, and that was the stack that I started with. And you went with the tight end, which is a much more economical option to do the stack with.
Yeah, and I thought maybe it would be a little bit I figured a lot of people would take Hurts, so I thought it might differentiate my team a little bit more. it kind of feels like the Eagles have been trading off weeks so far. A.J. Brown with the big first week. They kind of got Devontae Smith going the second week. Goddard's still been pretty good. I mean, he had 82 yards receiving last week. He's one of the few like downfield options at tight ends. So I was really tempted to either go to like Goddard and A.J. Brown or pivot off of Goddard. But I don't know. I thought maybe if Hurts rushed enough, got enough rushing yardage, stole some touchdowns, then you can tack on some Goddard work and we get there with both of them. So just kind of trying to mix it up because I bet there are going to be a lot of Hurts, A.J. Brown stacks this week.
And you went Curtis Samuel, as did I. And I also went J.D. McKissic, which is a total cheap play. Yep. And it's just the fact that I think that Washington's going to have to throw to try to stay in this game a lot. And so I'm taking a couple of cheaper options for some garbage points. That's all that play is for me, is just thinking that they're going to have to throw. Those guys are going to be the biggest beneficiaries of that game flow.
Yeah, I was thinking the same boat there. I ended up settling on Curtis Samuel, who has 20 targets through 2 weeks. He's getting all the close to the line of scrimmage stuff, so I think we can kind of count on that a little bit. And yeah, I looked at McKissic for a little bit. I looked at Jahan Dotson instead of Curtis Samuel. I was trying to go for a cheap option on that Washington team. So, we saw Slay kind of lock down the Vikings receivers a little bit last week. So it might be another tough week for McLaurin. And I just think there's going to be some opportunity here for these secondary Washington receivers.
We both have top of the line running backs. I took Swift. I'm into DeAndre Swift. This is also a little selfish of me because he's my lead fantasy back. So, there's a little bit of just like wishful thinking, and you took Dalvin Cook. So that's the game that those guys are playing against each other. We both took the primary back. Cook hasn't had quite the year that Swift has so far from a fantasy perspective, but they're obviously both top flight backs. So those are our kind of premium back selections that we took there. Any comments on those two?
Yeah, so I feel like Cook is in a good spot to have a huge week. Detroit's given up a lot of points just in general, but he's still getting a ton of usage. Like he's got the 6th most snaps among all running backs. Dalvin Cook does. Just some game scripts haven't gone right. Some things haven't played out perfectly, but I think he's still a huge part of that offense. And maybe he's a little bit under rostered here and we can get some kind of, if he has a big week, it gives us a little leg up over the competition. My only concern with Swift is he going to be back to the full snap share this week? Last week, he paid off for all of us who have him. He broke a long run. He scored a touchdown. He's an awesome player, but he was a little dinged up, only played about 50% of the snaps. So they are saying encouraging things this week. So hopefully we're back up in that full snap share with Swift. And if so, he's in a great spot. So love the Swift pick. I just a little bit worried with the injury if he's going to be out there, almost every down like usual. But I have him on my home league as well. So I'm right on board with you. I hope he has a huge week.
A couple other players. I already mentioned Trailon Burks. I think this could be a breakout game for him. I think they're coming from behind. It was a cheap play. And, it's funny that I took Trailon Burks after I took A.J. Brown because that's who, basically it's a, look like a 1-for-1 replacement. So that's kind of funny. I didn't notice that until just right now. And then we both have top flight wide receivers. You have Stephon Diggs, and I have the guy that replaced him in Minnesota, Justin Jefferson. So it's kind of funny to have those. Both have pretty good matchups today. Both are in high. The over-unders for both of those games are quite high. I talked about that in the bets segment as well, that I really like them going over that big over-under mark because I just think that this game is kind of prime for big points. So that's kind of an easy bet. Both of them are easy bets. And I'm looking at you getting value there at 8,300 on Diggs. I'm kind of like, oh man, that's pretty good. I didn't see that. I mean, maybe I should have gone back and got that. That's pretty dang good.
Yeah, I was surprised he was so relatively cheap. I actually tried to get Jefferson and Diggs in there in the same lineup, which is funny that you bring that up. So I was going for it. It gave me such a low floor play on another position. But yeah, Diggs has been lighting it up. And Miami, they had a huge week offensively last week, but they got way behind against the Ravens. Their defense gave up a ton of points last week. So we could be looking at something like that again. Gabe Davis is going to be back, but, he's coming off an injury. Diggs is still the number one in that offense. So I love the value there. But, of course, Jefferson, that's a great spot against Detroit. So, I can't argue about either of those. I kind of like my value here on Leonard Fournette at 7,200. I know he's not the most exciting play every week, but he's still getting a ton of usage despite the kind of injury tag you see there that I think scares people off a lot. He's going against a Packers defense that's given up the 3rd most rushing yards in the league this year. Like, I think it's an exploitable matchup. He hasn't shown a lot of explosion, but they've got a lot of banged up receivers in Tampa Bay, and they keep giving him the ball. So I think he's someone that people are going to overlook, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has 20 touches and a touchdown this week. And I just felt 7,200 was a nice price for
that. The Higbee choice for me, the tight end, is purely like I still think that offense has juice, and they're playing the Cardinals, who can't seem to stop anybody. You see the 30-second mark there against tight ends. That seemed like a good value there for me. You had Goddard, who was the other guy I was going back and forth between. So we were both on the same page there. I'm throwing a dart here with the Jaguars, and it's purely off of Herbert's health. And I also like Jacksonville's front. I think that they are really dynamic and very interesting. So I think that there's a lot of sacks. I actually kind of hope that Herbert doesn't play in a way, because I think he could get beat up real bad with this front. So let Chase Daniel earn that backup quarterback contract this week. I don't know. I want to stay away from that game as much as possible. Feel like the under is maybe the play, if anything, in that game. But I just have a feeling that maybe the Jacksonville defense could pay off here if they get to play Chase Daniel, or even if not, I think they'll get some sacks.
Yeah, they've got some impressive athletes on defense. I think they're going to be a little bit boomer bust at times during the season as they figure all this out. But you're right. They got a really good defensive line. Banged up Herbert or a backup, that's something you want to target. So Seattle was actually the cheapest defense I found that I felt comfortable with. But when you do factor in the Chargers quarterback situation, then that certainly opens up the Jaguars. So I feel like Seattle's defense for mine has been a little underrated. Like, they've been decent. We got 11 fantasy points out of them against the Broncos in week 1, where they had 2 fumble recoveries and 2 sacks. They did okay against San Francisco last week, but I just think a home game against Atlanta is a pretty nice matchup. I've been relatively impressed by Mariota, but there are going to be sacks in play, turnovers in play. We should be able to get some points out of the Seattle defense. So I think these are probably the 2 bottom of the barrel options that you can go with. And then there are certainly ones that you can pay up. I only had $100 left over in my lineup, so it was kind of I picked Seattle early on, and then I just stuck with them. But you can certainly find some other options for a little bit more money that are great plays this week.
My actual fantasy team this week, I had the Browns, and boy, not a great day until that last play. I got 8 points on that last play.
Yeah, that's how it works with defenses. It can be so fluky, but hey, you're paid off. You'll take it.
I got an angry text from the guy that I'm playing against, and I sent him back the gif of the great Hambino and Sandlot where he blows the kiss.
There's something about kickers and defense that just infuriates your opponent. I love it.
Yeah. I took out kickers in all my fantasy leagues. It's just like this high variance mark. I feel like defense is variance, but there's at least a little bit of skill to it. Maybe I should, change my thinking on the kicker part of it. But let's move on to Survivor. We both survived last week. It was not comfortable for either one of us, but we did survive that week. Man, like that Broncos game, I kept looking at it. I'm going, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Get together. It's Denver in September. Like, all of these things that you're playing a team that's not very good. Like, what are you doing messing around here? The Broncos just look like a mess. So I'm glad that I got them out of the way.
Yeah.
I gave them way too much credit in the preseason that they were going to be a good football team. I picked them as a playoff team over the Dolphins. It was like my last pick was, do I pick the Broncos in over or the Dolphins? And I was like, I like this AFC West a lot. I think they're all going to be really good. I think I'll take the Broncos with Wilson. I was like, oh man, I already kicking myself for that. Yeah. I get to go first on the odd weeks.
This is a tough week.
And I'm happy I get to go first this week. I'm not happy what I'm going to do because I have to burn something, and I'm not happy about it. But coming into this week, I was going Chargers. Mm-hmm. Chargers at home against Jacksonville, get right game, all that kind of stuff. Even if Jacksonville's improved, they got to fly halfway across. They got to fly across the whole country. Like, I still think the Chargers will win. If it's Chase Daniel, I think it's a coin flip. I think if I hurt Herbert, I still think that the Chargers win. but I don't feel confident enough in that, especially at picking at 10:45, Central Time in the game. You got to lock it. This is Survivor. You can't wait, right? So you got to lock this. I got to take the Chiefs, and the Chiefs going in. They're 5.5-point favorites. They are going to they're going to the Colts, who look terrible. And this is my big bet of the week too. So I'm putting everything on the Chiefs here. My big bet is taking the Chiefs -5.5. But Chiefs are playing really well. They're healthy. Everything's rolling already for them. And the Colts have nothing going. I'm not saying that they can't figure it out this week and play them tough, and that will suck for other reasons. But this is just the clearest game where there's a team that's just so much better. We'll see where you go, but to me, I hate that it's a road game, but it's not divisional. And it's just one team's been playing really well. One team has not done anything yet. So to me, I got to burn the Chiefs here. I'm taking them.
Yeah, I totally agree. They would have been my number one pick. It feels a little wrong because I do respect the Chiefs coaching. The Colts coaching. I hate to just jump on the early, 2-week bandwagon of, hey, they look bad. Like, let's put everything we have against them. But this is the clearest matchup on the slate for me is Chiefs against Colts. You figure any path this game goes, Chiefs could still beat them. A shootout, a low-scoring game. Like, I have confidence in all the ways that this could go. It's in a dome. Like, I don't know. It was my number one pick as well. So I'm a little bummed that you took that one, but I figured that's where you were going. So,
all right, what about you? Where are you going to go?
Yeah. This one, I'm breaking two rules here. I feel like division game and team on the road. So I kind of hate this, but I'm going with the Eagles against the Commanders. I just think the Eagles are an awfully good team. And when I'm kind of stuck in a situation like this, I would rather go down with the team that I think is really, really good. And I'm just really high on the Eagles this year. That offensive line gives them such a high floor on offense. Hurts looks really good right now. They've got weapons. We're both stacking them in DFS. So, again, these divisional games, you never know. Commanders have looked pretty good on offense, but they were shut out last week in the first half against the Lions. So I don't think they are quite to the level of the Eagles. So we'll see. I think going by the line, it's probably the clear second choice. I'm not sure if the spread's still above 7, but
6.5.
Okay. So I don't know where else we go. I mean, obviously my Bengals at the Jets should be a nice choice, but I'm just not going to tempt fate on that one. And we saw the Mike White game last year with this matchup where the Bengals lost in New York. So I don't know. I kind of fell on the Eagles just because it's the team that I like the most here.
It would have been my second. If you would have gone first, this is where I would have gone. I completely agree with you. I think survivor pools are interesting because you want to have this approach where you say like, oh, I want to save these teams that are really good, right? And that's really nice in theory, but you get faced with decisions pretty quick. And it's like, well, do I really want to risk? I don't even know who the play would be. Like, let's say, who is it? Like
Buffalo.
Well, but they're a really good team that you'd want to save, right?
Okay,
So like, who's like a middling team that is playing where, you might say, well, I feel like, do you feel good enough about the Vikings, who are a 6-point favorite somehow against the Lions, right? Well, that doesn't make, to me, that one doesn't make any sense at all. I like the Vikings. Well, I'll use them at some point, but that doesn't make any sense. Well, how about the Raiders going to Tennessee? I think the Raiders are a better team. They're only a 2-point favorite. The Raiders aren't like this like amazing team that you have to save, like break in case of emergency team, but you could see that game going the other way pretty quick, right? And so it's early where you just like, I don't want to play that this early, like the Raiders have to have a better matchup somewhere down the road at home that I feel better about, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I find this pretty interesting because we're talking about, Chiefs and Eagles. This could be a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't think it will be, but like this could be a Super Bowl. These two teams, and we're playing them in week 3. Right. So if you're one that likes to be a little bit more bold, maybe here you go. Bears. Do you feel good enough about the Bears, 3-point favorites at home against an AFC team in the Texans? I don't know what you've seen from the Bears to feel good enough to play them in Survivor, right?
No, I totally agree. I think we've got 7 home teams that are favored this week. That's part of the issue here. So you're kind of looking at these road teams. Like maybe you could talk yourself into the Saints at the Panthers, like because the Panthers have been pretty bad, but it's still an injured Jameis Winston on the road. Like I don't feel great about that. So I'm right there with you. I would rather take the teams that I just trust them being a good team, and we'll figure it out later, because eventually some of these middling teams are going to separate themselves, and you might have a better read on the Bears or on the Texans or whoever. So yeah, I can't do it. When it's 2 of those teams like the Bears and the Texans, I generally want to stay away. I just don't know enough. Like the game flow can decide so much in that game. Like if the Bears get up 7 or they're down 10, I just feel like that's a totally different scenario for that team.
All right, we'll leave it there. Good stuff on. I'm telling you, man, this is my favorite random, like, fantasy football related game that has come out in the last. I don't know how long Survivor Leagues have been out, but I just like it. Have you played anything else that's like? I mean, I know that QB List featured some like weird fantasy games, like the Vampire League and the what is it? Zombie League.
There's a Guillotine League.
League, yes.
There's a Grand Theft League, I believe they call it. I have not played in that one. There's some fun ones. I love Guillotine. You just don't. We try to start it with however many teams there are equals how many NFL weeks there are. I think we take out the last week, but it's like 16 or 17 teams that draft, and last place gets eliminated each week, and their players hit the waiver pool. So it's a lot of fun. You're trying to start early with like kind of a just kind of a floor team, so you don't get eliminated, and then you're picking up the best players. There's a typical fab style from a fantasy league, and you're kind of all fighting over. I just got Dalvin Cook this week, so everyone's kind of fighting over Dalvin Cook, how much they want to bid on him. Guillotine is awesome. Grand Theft I've never played myself, but I believe the team that you beat, you can like steal a player from or something. So I would definitely encourage people to check them out. There's a lot of really fun league types out there if you're just tired of the typical fantasy league.
So the Vampire League is where one guy's a vampire.
Yeah.
And that vampire doesn't draft. So they build their team off of free agency after the draft. And then if the vampire team beats you, they get to pull any player they want off of your team. And I think there's even like that player has to be starting, because I think there's something about like, if you let's say you have a bunch of bye weeks and you happen to be playing the vampire and he beats you, but you have guys on the bench or something. But that can't be right, because you could just bench it. You have to have like a viable lineup. Anyway, I've never actually played Vampire. What I think Vampire should be, there should be a single player Vampire where you are the vampire and you play against like 10 or 11 or whatever, like, managed teams by a computer.
Yeah. Because
I would want to be the vampire. Like, well, that's the whole point of the league. Why wouldn't you want to challenge yourself? So I think that, Erik, you and I need to develop an app that's a Vampire League app where, it's a single player thing, and it's computer manages the rest of the teams, because I think that would be way more fun.
I think we should just develop a whole fantasy platform, because I have some complaints with the ones that are out there. So it must be harder than it looks, but I wish we could piece together some of the best things from all these different platforms, because some of them are kind of infuriating. I don't know.
Tell Nick we need to do that.
Absolutely.
I think the Guillotine League is a lot of fun. I actually think that it's a little bit wiser to make the first chop at like week 4 or 5, so that everybody gets to play for like a month.
Yeah.
And it's not just this like 1 week, because that's kind of a bump. Like, you're just done. You're out of it week 1. So we did that in one of the first COVID year. A lot of people didn't really want to play fantasy because they just didn't think the league would play all the games, and they just didn't want to deal with it. And so I pitched the Guillotine League as an idea, and everybody liked that idea. But we did it where you wouldn't get chopped until week 4 or 5, because there's 12 teams. So
that makes
sense. Play through fantasy playoffs. And I thought it worked pretty well. I got out to a really early lead, and like I just kind of coasted, but so I liked it, for obvious reasons. But
right.
So
it's a lot of fun when you win, that's for sure.
It's always fun when you win, right? Yeah. We had a league that was very much had a lot of keeper elements, and I would always compete because I had done really well with the keeper elements. And then they changed the structure because one person was doing too well with the keeper elements. So now it's just one keeper, which whatever, that's fine.
Right.
And my one keeper this year did not do much, or has not done much yet. That was Cam Akers. So now I have Cam Akers or Trailon Burks in the future. So pretty much. I mean, there's maybe other players, but those are the late value guys. So what's going on in the fantasy world? Injuries, plays, the upside plays with quarterbacks. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, the injury news is always rolling in. So I think it's actually a little more encouraging this week. We've got Alvin Kamara back. Josh Jacobs was a little questionable. Looks like he's good to go. Jacoby Myers is out for the Patriots. So that receiving core is just even worse now. That's going to be a rough matchup for the Patriots against the Ravens, I think, because that's how you attack the Ravens is through the air. So that's kind of scary for me. J.K. Dobbins is finally back. He's active against the Patriots. It's going to be fun to see him. I wouldn't trust him, but it's exciting to see where he's at in his recovery from his ACL injury. But other than that, man, it's running back is getting tough. I'll just say that. Like, I think there were only like a couple players over 20 PPR points last week at the running back position. There were like 3 players, I think, the top 20. And I heard you talking up David Montgomery. You were watching his plays, his snaps from last week, all of his carries. He's my RB10 this week. Like that's where we're at with running back. I know you're high on Montgomery, but most people typically kind of wince when they hear David Montgomery RB10 overall. But home matchup against Houston is just an awesome spot, and he's getting a ton of snaps. So, I would just say that if you have one good running back right now, you're probably doing pretty well. So don't stress it too much if you've got an RB2 that's a little shaky, because I mean, we get down to the 20s, and we're looking at like the Jeff Wilsons and the Cordell Pattersons, and it just gets real sketchy. So I think running back, like always, is kind of the first topic this week.
Yeah, I have Swift, and then it goes Akers / Henderson, which I think they want Akers to be the guy. Like you said, I think week 1 might have been a message kind of thing or whatever. I'm rolling with Akers. I do have Devin Singletary. I don't love that. They can't, if the Bills have a weakness right now, they can't run the ball. I did pick up Mostert, Raheem Mostert, however you say that. I don't want to play him this week.
No.
So, that's kind of where I'm at there. I picked him up to have him, and then I have the dude that got shot in my IR slot.
He's waiting.
So, eventually maybe he comes back and fills that RB2. But yeah, it's just so funny to come out of a draft and be like, yeah, I feel pretty good about this. And then like 2 weeks and it's like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah. And I still do have Henderson above Akers, but I totally understand. I mean, last week, Henderson was down to 57% of the snaps. So it's definitely converging here. So that backfield's definitely one to watch. And I'm on the same page as you with Devin Singletary. Like, I want to rank him higher. I think he's a decent player, and the Bills' offense is a juggernaut, but they're just not getting production out of the running backs. So at some point, it's like, if you got a better option, go with them. But Singletary's on the field, so that's good. So I see we have a sit-start question here.
Yeah,
Aguilar,
Bailey's looking
Dobbins
for some advice here. Aguilar, Gage, or Dobbins. So Dobbins' first game off of injury. That always kind of worries me to play a player. I believe Nick, who runs Pitcher List, he has a phrase called "still ill," still IL. In the world of fantasy, the injured list.
Yep.
Still ill is like they're playing, but they're just coming off of an injury. You kind of want to see him prove it, and that's usually where I'm at, particularly with the running back. Like, how many carries is this guy really going to get? Are they going to pop him in here for 20 carries? I kind of doubt that. So, I mean, it's a hold situation for me. So I would, and then Gage is Gage hurt?
He is. I was just checking to make sure, though. It looks like he's going to go, and the Bucs are already without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So that's where I'd want to go, is Gage. It's disappointing because he did not perform much last week when they were already in shambles at wide receiver. Like, he kind of had a chance, although Evans got suspended late, but he did see 6 targets, 5 receptions. Like, I think if you're in a PPR league, probably even a half PPR league, you could go with Gage here. I'm just not one to trust Aguilar personally. So I would probably go for the upside of Dobbins over Aguilar. So I think if it's a PPR league, I would go Gage, even though it doesn't feel great. If it's a standard league, I'd probably go with Dobbins and try to get the touchdown.
Interesting. All right.
I don't know. Are you feeling any different on those? Or
no. I mean, I as long as Gage is playing, I'd be happy with that. But I just feel like I've been burned so many times of like, this guy's finally back. And then you play him and the guy gets, 3 carries or, It's like, was Godwin? Why the heck did Chris Godwin play week 1? Like, it was so dumb. It was so dumb in the moment. I don't understand why they would do that. Of course he pulled his hamstring. Like, that is because he came back too fast. That is exactly what happens when you do that. You get those soft tissue injuries. So frustrating. So now I have to like continue to sit him on my bench. Like, what am I doing with Chris Godwin? God, it's so frustrating.
It's a bizarre decision for the Bucs too, because they have Super Bowl aspirations, like they shouldn't be focusing on week 2. They should be focusing on week 16. So I would just say with Aguilar, only on the field for 50% of the snaps last week. We'll probably see that go up with Jacoby Myers though. So that probably is in Aguilar's benefit there, is that Myers is going to be out of the game. But they play different positions. So we'll see how that shakes out, because Myers is just a slot receiver.
Yeah. And I just don't, I think that New England offense has been rough. Yes. So I think you have to worry about that. And even though the matchup looks like it could be pretty good, because that Raven secondary got taken advantage of last week at the end of the game, and they're young, they're injured, right? Like, that all those things are true. So I guess you're probably hoping for like a long touchdown. I just don't know if that's max game, right? So it's just one of those things, like, are you playing the matchup or are you playing the player because you like the player? So Ryan's got a question. It looks like Ryan might have a pretty good team here.
Yeah.
He's talking about a flex in his, half PPR. So he's got Henderson, Devonta Smith, Elijah Moore, Damian Harris, or Tyler Lockett all sitting there. Boy, where do you even start? You've got Elijah Moore on a bad football team, with Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco's a vet. So, there's probably some level of targets there. Yep. I think Seattle's a bad football team. I love Tyler Lockett, but he's in prison right now, having to have that offense. But Devonta Smith, to me, like, he's the most talented player, Devonta Smith, on this list. Yep. You're just curious what that target share is going to be going forward. Like you said, Brown had it week 1, Smith had a bigger share week 2. What's it going to really shake out as an average? To me, I probably lean Devonta Smith out of that list. That's my initial gut reaction. But where are you at?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's Devonta Smith for the matchup against Washington. We've just seen that secondary get torched here. Smith gets his 7 targets, 80 yards last week. So I think that week 1 was more of a fluke than anything. So I'll go for the upside. I think he's the biggest upside play. I just really love that environment for the whole offense. So give me Devonta Smith. I trust that offense. Moore has like a lot of competition to fight with there in the Jets, which is kind of crazy, but they got a couple pass catching backs. They've even got, Tyler Conklin getting a lot of looks at tight end. They've obviously got Garrett Wilson ahead of him. Corey Davis is always involved. So there's just a lot of competition there. I think Damian Harris would be the next option just as far as chasing a touchdown, but I like Devonta Smith personally. So I'm going to go with him in the flex in a half PPR league.
You have a DraftKings that you can pull up.
Yeah, I can get that.
Because I don't have. We were using FanDuel. Andrew's looking for a $4,000 wide receiver, so I don't know what that would be, but I'm sure we can find one.
Yeah, for sure.
I just need to pull up a list here.
Yeah, and I can look down our flex rankings here. I saw that Chris Olave was shockingly low on FanDuel. I'm not sure what they have him on DraftKings, so I'm just trying to buy some time until we get those up. But Olave had a whole bunch of targets last week, 13 targets. He had a bunch of deep shots that they just missed on. I'm not sure if he'll be that cheap on DraftKings, but he was someone I noticed on FanDuel that was way underpriced. I actually almost went with him in my lineup there. Let's pull up some names here.
Of course, they want me to log in, and I don't remember to log in. So it just goes to show you. Not prepared for that, Andrew. My apologies.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Mine's just, I think while streaming, the internet doesn't work as well. So I'm working on it. But, I don't know. Like we were saying about Gage, I don't know how cheap he is, but they may need him a lot. You liked Trailon Burks, who's probably a cheaper option. I do think he's going to ramp up as things go on here. So just kind of naming some of the lower option players here.
Yeah, to me, Berckes has all the talent in the world, right? And I don't know that Tennessee really has. They have this giant void that was left by A.J. Brown. So they draft a guy that reminds you of AJ Brown.
Yeah.
Okay. At some point, they're going to put 2 and 2 together. I know he had a rough preseason, but you get him on the field. He knows how to play football, right?
Yeah.
So you get him out there. At some point, they're going to have to rely on him, especially if they're going to be in games where they maybe have to play a little catch up. So that's where I'm at with it. I'm kind of, you're kind of betting, a poker term, like you're betting on the come, right? Like you believe that it's going to happen, and you're trying to shake the value out before it actually happens, and that price rises in future weeks. Yeah, that's where I'm at with him. But it's a gamble. Like, there's definitely no sure bet on that.
Yeah. So I do have the list here. He's saying around 4,000. So Chris Olave is at 4,500. I don't know if that's close enough. Johan Dotson at 4,600 is an interesting choice for me. It gets a little rough though as you start getting down towards 4,000. We've got names like Nelson Aguilar at 4,100, which I think is relatively reasonable now that Jacoby Myers is out. Same with Devontae Parker in that receiving core at 4,000. I just really don't trust him. He just hasn't shown much at all so far. So otherwise, it's pretty rough. You got like Ashton Doolin here, Scotty Miller. They used a little bit in Tampa Bay. Romeo Dobbs. So the options get pretty rough as you go down the list here. So I don't know if there's a great choice once you get down to the 4,000 range. Unfortunately, I don't know if I have any great value plays to say right there. I know a lot of people like Nico Collins. He's going against Chicago. Maybe you put a dart throw on him. He's actually had a little bit of volume lately. How's the Chicago secondary looked in general? Because Collins did have 9 targets last week against the Broncos.
So their CB1, Jalen Johnson, has not been targeted yet.
Okay. Good sign.
So that's either an incredible compliment to Jalen Johnson, who's a very good player.
Yeah.
Or it's Kyler Gordon is on the other side, or when they're a nickel, Kyler Gordon drops onto the nickel corner and they bring in Kindle Vildor. And so they may just be like, hey, we know that Jalen Johnson's good. We're avoiding him, and we're targeting these other 2 corners. Mm-hmm. Their safety play is pretty good, I think. I mean, Brisker's is rookie. He's made a few mistakes, but overall, Brisker's pretty positive on the back end there. But I think it's really picking on the rookie corner and Kindle Vildor, who is a weak link. I don't want to beat him up because he's been doing all right, but he's not a top level corner. So if you think that if Johnson, and they don't shadow it much or anything, but they just go sides. But if you think like Cooks, is their number 1, well, maybe Johnson takes him more times than not.
Yeah.
So you're looking for those secondary options. But if they just want to bury one player to one side and then feature Brandon Cooks, line him up so that he's always, I don't know if Cooks always goes to one side or not. That'd be an interesting thing to know. But
he's happy with Olave, so I think we helped him. I would say, great. I would say that Collins would be the super deep play, but Olave is actually a good player and 13 targets last week. When I was watching that game, he was getting targeted just as much as Michael Thomas. He looked like just as much of the wide receiver 1 in that offense. So obviously, I wasn't watching the all 22 on that one, but Olave is a big part of that Saints offense.
He should be.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're also. It's just the quarterback situation is a little weird there. Yeah. But yeah, Olave is really good. I mean, Bears fans should know that. All the Bears fans wanted Chris Olave for a very long time, and then he went way too high.
Yep.
For the Bears to be able to get him. But anyway,
all right.
Anything else you want to cover before we take off?
No. I mean, I was just kind of looking at some more of the running back plays lower on. I think this is if you're going to play Dameon Pierce for the Texans, this is a good game against the Bears. I just think both teams are going to run the ball a lot. And so you'll get some attempts here from Dameon Pierce where I've been a little scared to use him in weeks past just because the Texans have played some tough teams. Michael Carter, I think, is actually a little bit undervalued for the Jets. He's been playing 60% of the snaps for the Jets ahead of Breece Hall, the rookie. And 60% of the snaps is the 15th highest for running backs in the league. So Carter's getting targeted. They're going to have to put up points against the Bengals, I think. So I think we're going to see another Joe Flacco heavy passing volume game. So those are a couple of the borderline ones that I feel pretty good about, Carter and Pierce. But no, otherwise, I don't know if you have any specific questions, but I think we covered a lot of it.
Yeah, good stuff. I think the Carter Breece Hall thing is really funny because you get that highly drafted running back in, and then everybody forgets that Carter was pretty decent last year, and everybody's just like, oh, Breece Hall is going to be the man. This is like the best pick ever, and maybe he'll get there.
Yeah.
But it's just a reminder that until the guy proves it, you don't always have that easy path to carries. I know a lot of people liked Hall for offensive rookie of the year, right? There was a lot of talk like that he was just this value pick in fantasy, and it's like I don't know, man. I like Carter. Carter's a nice player.
Yeah, Hall is still getting targeted, which I think is very encouraging this early in his rookie season. So long term, I still feel pretty good about him, but obviously Carter's not going to go away. And they were even getting Ty Johnson involved last week, like mixing in with Hall for some reason. So it's a little worrisome for Hall for the short term, but I do still have hope if you're in a dynasty league or even second half of the season, better things should be ahead. But there's kind of this whole just weird situation with the Jets where we're going to have, the real quarterback come back soon. And we're not entirely sure if he's going to be as good as Joe Flacco, which is a weird thing to say. So the Jets are an interesting fantasy situation. What's going to happen here in a few weeks when Wilson gets back?
Yeah. So wild. So wild.
It's Flacco, I don't know. We shouldn't feel better about this offense with Flacco's playing.
You guys better get right against them today. You guys meaning the Bengals. So
I'm not going to be able to enjoy a minute of this game. I've already resigned myself to that. So it's one of those games I wish I didn't have to watch almost.
Man, Bears and Bengals fans looking at each other in the mirror. That's
it's tough. I think they're going to get it figured out, but an 0-3 start would be disastrous. So
especially dropping one of the Jets, that would be and teams don't bounce back very easily from 0-2-0-3. I mean that's rough.
We could do a whole show on the issues with the Bengals offense, so I'll spare you. I think everyone on Twitter has taken a shot this week on diagnosing the problems, so there are many for the Bengals offense.
Well, let's get T. Higgins going. And things will improve, at least in my life. So all right, everybody, really appreciate you joining us. We'll be back next week. We're gonna do this every week. Bring your questions, bring your trade, start, sit, whatever it is, and we'll go through them here. But until next week, let's make some money. Let's stack some wins, and we'll see you then.